Hey there. Let's see. Let me adjust this. I, uh, I shouldn't be here. I snuck into the pool. It's normally the pool is open until 10 o'clock, pre-COVID era, but with COVID now they closed it at like 6:30. But I know how to sneak in, so only one time have I ever been caught. And that was because I was actually swimming. So there are security that patrol gentlemen in yellow vests, and they patrol. It seems like every hour, you'll see them walking around. And one time, I have a friend that when the gym was closed, he would do his workout over on the other side over there, right outside. That's right here in the community that I live in. It's like a walled fortress, right? This whole like a kind of like a gated community in a way. But this is like our little main street there. We got like meeting places and a gym, and there's another pool down further, and there's a coffee shop, and a bunch of places. Anyway, so the gym was closed too, so he would work out over there, and I do my swim. Hi, Reese. Yeah, it is a nice place. Nicest place I've ever lived. In fact, we're on our fourth unit here. We keep every time our lease comes up. We lived in. This is our one, two. This is our third Irvine company property. So there's a story in that. I'll tell the story actually, but let me finish the other one. So the guy that I know, he would work out right over there. He would do like squats and stuff like that, and he had his weights and stuff. And he knows I swim, and he's the one that taught me how to sneak in. So I used his technique to get in through the door over there. In fact, if the security guard spots me, we'll see him emerge through that door or through the door over there. Anyway, so I would sneak in, and I would swim like I was swimming like at 7 o'clock at night. Like I said, the place is normally open till 10, but with COVID, it was closed down early. So one time after I finished my laps, and I don't do a lot of laps, I only do 8 laps. I poked my head up at the top, and there was the security guard there, like a pimply-faced 17-year-old young man. And, "Hey, sir, the pool is closed, you'll need to leave." Like out of The Simpsons. And when I left, my friend that was doing the workout, friend, like I have any friends, he said he was laughing because I was doing kick turns at every lap. And he said that the security guard was following me across one end, and I would kick turn, he would follow me back, and so he was doing laps with me, waiting for me to finish. So that was funny. So anyway, just the preamble there that I might get caught. But yeah, as to this place, this is called Center Point in Irvine. Now this Irvine Ranch was like a part of a Spanish land grant. I think it was like a subdivision of a Spanish land grant. Oh, and someone just went to the website from Pulaski, Vermont. Is that where you are? Are you there? Can you say hi if you're there? If it's you. Anyway, I think it was part of a Spanish land grant or something like that. This huge area of land. I think it goes all the way from like Laguna Beach all the way into the mountains here, out by Corona. And I think the way that it went down was the owners, the Irvine family, had the idea that they would create a community. I guess they were using it for ranching. And so they came up with a really clever idea. They said they contacted the University of California. This was like when was this? 60s? 50s maybe? And they said, we will give you a ginormous piece of land, scot-free. You can build a university here. And, it's about, at the time, this was kind of rural at the time. In fact, I remember as a boy, Irvine, the city of Irvine was only founded, I think, in 1972. It's younger than me. I remember driving along the freeway and seeing vast empty fields. And so the University of California came down and built this big university right in the middle of the Irvine Ranch. And the Irvine company said, well, great, now we've got a university. We're going to build a university town around it. So they started coming up with these community ideas, these master plan communities. And if you had asked me about living in Irvine when I was in my 30s, I would have told you that's the last place I would ever live. Because it was like the worst possible thing, not a natural, organically developed community, but a master planned community or some master community architect. It's like Disneyland. We're going to make Disneyland, and you can rent or buy a house there, right? I didn't want to live anything like that. But fast forward a couple of decades and I'm a father, and that's exactly where I want to live because Irvine is the safest big city in the United States for like a long time. So when I came back to the United States and I was looking for a place to bring my family, I chose Irvine. One, because it's the safest big city in the United States. Two, because it has an outstanding school system. We pay a lot in taxes here. And a lot of those taxes go into the subsidizing our schools here. And as a result, they're really good. So that's it. So I'm kind of winding up to the fact that Irvine Company either developed most of the land here, the housing tracts that people buy. They also have a lot of condos. They have a lot of apartment complexes, but they build these beautiful apartment communities. This is probably, if this community was an iPhone, this community here would be an iPhone 9. Okay, there's an iPhone 10 community about a quarter mile that way, and there's an iPhone 11 community on the other side of the freeway. Every time they build these communities, they'll take a big plot of land, and they will just whip it up like magicians into these incredible communities where the units are beautiful, the amenities are phenomenal. It looks like a dang resort, doesn't it? It's very well thought out. Like I said, it's a fortress. I mean, we practically live behind, even though it's a safe community, we practically live in a fortress here. I mean, and there's cons to that too, the con being that, you don't live in the real world, and I talk to Emily about that sometimes, about how, and my driving school students as well, how Irvine is a bubble. South Orange County is very much a bubble. We don't really experience the rest of the world, which is one of the reasons I was kind of glad that Emily chose to move to the South Bay, and which is far more realistic and real world. In fact, if she'd had her way, she wanted to move to downtown LA. She had found an old apartment complex right in the historic district of LA, and we went and looked at the apartment. We came this close to getting it for her, and I'm kind of glad she didn't. After all, but it was interesting. Anyway, so hello, little five, small five. How you doing? How you doing tonight? Well, what time is it where you are, small five? And where are you? So I thought I would make this video and answer one of the questions that I received, which was someone left a message in a comment. Oh, you're in Los Angeles. Oh, okay. Anywhere near downtown? That's where Emily was going to live, in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, the city, or Los Angeles, the larger area. Well, I mean, I know LA City's big. Someone asked me, they said, Kurt, now that you're talking again, and I'm not making just weird videos under a bridge or, Stoic poetry stuff, which, you probably, maybe when people wonder, what the hell was up with all that? Stoic poetry was just a way of a catalyst for writing, basically, as I was trying to complete the second book, The Good Life. But anyway, they asked me, they said, you have a lot of explaining to do, Kurt. Oh, you're from Hacienda Heights, more like LA County. Okay, I've heard of Hacienda Heights, but I don't know quite where it is. Is that in the area that's being gentrified? I don't call it Cali, but I've always thought LA as sketchy. How is it there? It's sketchy. It depends on where it depends on your, what your interest is and what your perspective. LA proper is wouldn't you agree, small five? LA, a good word for it, I think, is gritty, cutting edge, artistic, diverse, but more grit, right? It's a very, very gritty place. You agree? Yes, it is. Versus Orange County, which is I don't want to say sterile, but I mean, the streets here in Orange County are swept clean. Orange County has a very, I don't know how they do it, but somehow when you cross the line from Santa Ana, you cross the 55 freeway, basically. You cross the 55 freeway and you enter South Orange County, and it becomes very different. Nowhere more so than right here. Irvine is the center, I think, the center of the bubble, the Orange County bubble. Get a little further south, down by, especially down towards San Clemente and the like, and it's not gritty in a bad way, it's gritty in a realistic way. Communities like San Clemente and Dana Point are what California beach communities were when I was growing up. San Clemente is exactly how I remember Redondo Beach being when I was a boy growing up in Redondo Beach. It's still got that whole earthy, down to earth vibe. You like Irvine? Feels more safer? It does. Yeah, it does. I feel it does feel safe. It does feel safe here. It's got its advantages. Although small five, I would say though that I miss reality. If I may, I think Irvine's a great place to raise children, but it's not. I mean, I feel disconnected from the real world. Um, even more so than when I was living in Japan, right? At least in Japan, I was living in the real world of Japan. I don't know that there's. I mean, what do you think, Small Five? Is there any place? Can you imagine any place like this anywhere else? Okay, maybe there are lots of small communities that have this kind of safe and kind of scrubbed clean feel, but combine that with the stark affluence of Orange County and the international vibe, you know, but not again, not the gritty international vibe. It's the it's the moneyed international vibe, right? There's supercars everywhere, right? I mean, I see Lamborghinis and what are they called? McLarens and everything. You know, they're all over the place. I mean, you get people from money all over the world seem to come here for a reason. Now, that's one of the reasons why I struggle so much, right? I have to work 2 jobs. Even though I make a good living, I have to struggle to be able to stay here. Reese says, I just got out of the protest downtown. I live in Cleveland, and we just had the debates. Irvine sounds calm and nice. It is very calm and nice. But again, it's very unreal in a way, right? It's like, nope, I'm kind of glad I live in safer side of LA County. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it would kind of wear on you after a while if you had to live in that grit all the time, right? But since I don't live it at all anymore, I kind of miss it. And Reese, downtown, you having the protests in downtown Cleveland? It's interesting. I hadn't heard of those, and I wouldn't have imagined Ohio is. Are there protests in Cleveland? I'm embarrassed that I didn't know that. Ohio, of all places. No kidding. But anyway, I was asked some pointed questions. Presidential debates. Oh, protests regarding the presidential debates? And yeah, we have had several. Are people protesting? Oh, because the debates are in Ohio, right? And people are protesting. Are they? I don't want to get necessarily too political, but are they? It would be interesting to see who or what are they protesting? One or both? Or yeah, downtown is shut down. No kidding. Wow. Yeah, I just watched the debates. Never seen any debate like that, huh? I kept I kept wanting in my mind. It's just a pissing contest. Yeah, I was in my mind. I just was thinking, why can't we just have a presidential candidate like the old days, right? You know, 2 sober, sane, dare I say, a little bit boring candidates. You know, talking in sober tones and like adults about issues that as a young man, when I remember those candidates that I barely understood and hardly even cared about, right? But they had a kind of a grown-up feel about them, right? The candidates of the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s, kind of like Los Angeles downtown, have many protests. Yeah, we do. They continue to go on. And I kept thinking through the debate that one of you, if you just act like a grown-up, you're gonna swing this debate, right? Quit talking over the other guy, and certainly don't call one another names. My gosh, what does it devolve to? Anyway. So anyway, one of you left a message saying, you know, Kurt, you got some splaining to do. You know, things like, what do you think about coming to America? Was it a good idea? You know, what are the consequences of that? Any thoughts about it? You know, just bring up to speed on all the things that we've done. I thought I was watching Jerry Springer, but it was Don and Joe. I know, me too. And it was really amazing. And this is just the first of 3. Interesting. So I'll answer one of those questions. Was it a good idea to come? Am I glad that we came back to America? And that's an easy answer. You know, absolutely, positively, uproariously, it was a good thing to do for a couple of reasons. That said, I wouldn't mind going back to Japan after a while. So that the reasons being, one, my wife and I it's in our nature to, like I've said in other videos, to upend our life every half decade or so. And that's why we're about overdue again to do that. So we were tired of our life in Japan, you know, our jobs and the routine and all that stuff. And we were ready for a change. So we were glad for that. We liked the adventure of it all. Turning to our daughter, it was a very good idea for her in terms of the fact that she adapted quite easily. There was one incident early on that had me a bit worried. Okay, I'll tell you all. I've never told anybody this incident. Maybe I can get the title of this video. If you haven't noticed in the titles of these, I start off with live by the pool or live by the secret spot at the Spectrum, but then I change it to whatever the most salacious or clickbaity title could be. And I'm not doing that necessarily to do clickbait, but it is kind of fun to kind of tease out after a 30 to 40 minute live what was the most interesting thing. I'm glad. Oh, nice to see you again, Kurt. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, hello, Essex. Is that it? Essex. Hello, welcome to you. So I'll tell you all a story of something that happened, an incident that happened early on when Emily and Yumiko came to join me right here in Irvine, that frankly stunned me. So we'd been here probably 4 or 5 months. Emily was in. I think she was a freshman in high school, or maybe she started here in their last year of junior high school. So she might have still been in junior high or just started as a freshman in high school here at Woodbridge High School. I don't think I've ever mentioned which high school she went to. And by the way, that was all my doing. I picked Irvine, and I picked the high school. I had a lot of homework to do. I'll talk more about that some other time. Anyway, we were living in the first Irvine company facilities that we lived in. Can't quite remember what it was called. It was over by the high school, within walking distance of the high school. And one night, late at night, my phone rang. And I picked it up, and it was the police. Irvine police. And they said, Mr. Bell, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. This is Officer so-and-so with the Irvine police. We're out here at some street, I can't remember which one it was. We're with your daughter. What? Emily, who should be sleeping in the room next door? I got up and I hold the phone in my ear. She's gone, right? Emily had snuck out of the house and was picked up. Get this. She was picked up by an Irvine police patrol. I think she was walking along. I wish I could remember. I'm going to have to make a live video with her and ask her. We will interrogate her. All of us will interrogate Emily and get to the bottom of this. She was caught with 2 boys. Yeah, wow, huh? But wait, it's more interesting than that. It's not just 2 boys. It was 2 Japanese boys, like her, that had come. They'd come over from Japan. Hi, my eyes are blurry. Moana? I can't quite see that. There's 20 of you. Hi. You came for just the juiciest bits. She was out walking. She had snuck out. Hi, Tanny. She had snuck out of our apartment and somehow rendezvoused with 2 Japanese boys and were traipsing about the streets of Irvine in the middle of night. Hello, Wamberto. I know you told me what your real name is, but I forgot. I know you, though. She was traipsing about. Wamberto, welcome. You're gonna like this. I'm telling the story of how Emily, soon after we arrived, she was picked up by the Irvine police in the middle of the night. Tom, that's right. Tom, aren't you the diver? Are you the diver? Is that you? The commercial diver? Maybe. Anyway, 2 Japanese boys. Now, the police officer told me that the other boys, that she was with 2 boys and that they were Japanese and that they didn't speak English so well. So Emily was kind of doing the translation for them. So I found out where the address that they were, and I got my stuff together and nope, tree surgeon. Wow, no kidding, that's amazing. Wow, what do you think of the trees back there? They look pretty healthy. The palms. Anyway, so I got in the car, I drove out to where it was, and sure enough, there was the patrol car with the lights flashing and three youngsters sitting on the curb, Emily among the two boys. And I had worked up my little spiel as I went over, of course, I took them aside, and the police officer was a very understanding person, and he basically knew that I needed to do my fatherly duty of being shocked and stunned and amazed and putting a bit of a threat. And then I decided that the boys were a little bit older than Emily, that I would put the fear of whatever fear I could into them, that I did not want them seeing my daughter anymore. What the hell were they thinking? Anyway, we took Emily back. I don't think she ever saw those two boys again. And it basically, she had made friends, and they were connection, being Japanese. They were kind of a connection with Japan, right, which she had recently left. They had not been here very long either. And they had just stupidly decided to have a rendezvous in the middle of the night and traipse around town, which, come to think of it, in Japan, you might get away with, You can kind of walk the streets of Japan, not too problem. And it's not such a problem here, too. This is a pretty safe place. But still, a police officer is going to definitely stop and see three young minors walking around the streets at 2 a.m. and call their parents. And that's what happened. That incident kind of just happened. We talked about it. Emily was grounded. I can't quite remember all the details of the punishment. And nothing like that ever happened again, or at least nothing that I ever know about, right? Womberto says, looking good, pretty good, no palms where I live in the UK, but they have some down on the south coast. At least they were looking out for the kids' safety. Yes, they were. Nothing like that ever happened again. For the most part, Emily did something interesting. I guess this video is going to be a bit differently than I had intended. I was going to talk about, and I started already talk about if I have regrets about coming to America. She spent the next 3 years basically in high school, pretty much, the first year her friends were basically either Asian or Japanese. Mostly Chinese and Korean. I mean, kids like her that had come over. I think she had a couple of Japanese friends, but mostly there were two girls. One was her Chinese girl and a Korean girl, and the three of them were best friends. All of them in the same boat. So their common language was English, and she had a kind of a community of friends, and they were those two girls were very good, very upstanding young women. I mean, who knows what I'm based on everything that I know. I mean, I don't know what they were doing in private, right? She's got to have some secrets from mom and dad. Yeah, I guess so. It was all fairly, and it remains, as far as I know, fairly innocent. It wasn't, and then she met Chris, her current boyfriend. They've been together for over a year now, in her senior year. Now that she's out on her own, her friends tend to be, it seems like most of the people she hangs out with now are native English speakers. It's good that she found people she can relate to. Yeah, you're right, Womberto. It is good, and it took some time for that. Rob, right? Rob, and it took some time for that. A couple of years. It seemed at first she was kind of clinging to Asia, right? And as I think the other two girls were as well, because they had. I mean, America's an intimidating place, even Irvine, right? So now she's as integrated as I possibly could imagine. Well, where's my little Japanese girl, right? I think she's in there. Moana says, I've been glad to see you doing videos in this style again. I've watched your videos since I was in college, around 2010. Thank you for your long support. I appreciate that. So that was the incident that happened with Emily. Back to the question, was it a good idea? For Emily's sake, I think it was a very good idea, because it gave her, it rounded out the second side of the coin, right, of her two cultures. So, Japanese is still her first language. She still speaks Japanese with her mother. I don't see much of a Japanese person in her anymore. My 15-year-old half-Japanese granddaughter is taking freshman college courses, top of her class. Awesome, Bill. I know you. I think you've been around for a long time, too. So I think it worked out well for Emily. It'll be interesting to see if she ever goes back to Japan to live, you know, interesting. Because I think Yumiko and I might end up back there. Kind like me, when I was in high school, small five says, when I was in high school, all my friends were Asian, but now all my coworkers and friends are Mexican. Interesting. So what about Yumiko and I? Let's deal with Yumiko first. For Yumiko, I think she prefers to live in the United States. So I think if anybody, I would be the one probably want to go back to Japan more than her. For a number of reasons. I think she just feels freer here. She's commented to me before about how, you know, she has to act her age, she has to dress her age, she has to wear her hair her age, and she prefers the fact that she can be anything she wants here, right? She also likes all the abundance of food and the freedom and the diversity and all that stuff. In America, there's a lot, you know, there's a lot going on here that's pretty cool in that capacity, especially if you're Japan can be a tough place to live, especially if you're Japanese. If you're a foreigner, you know, you've got that gaijin card you can play. You have to deal with simply the fact that, you know, your place is as a foreigner, right? You can never be part of the club, so to speak. So I think it's worked out well for Yumiko, although she works very hard. She has a very difficult job. I would like to get her back to Japan and something that was less difficult, or maybe change jobs here. But again, like many Japanese, they don't change, right? So she's got a good position. It's a tough job, but I doubt she'll change. Reese says, I have a friend who is a TV star in Japan. He isn't super fond of the culture. Interesting, TV star in Japan, wow. If you go back to Japan, would you want to walk around in the forest again to explore cities and towns? I'll answer that in a question. Seems stressful, yes. Have you ever played any video games? No, not really, not since I was a kid, you know, in video arcades. You know, Asteroids, Frogger, Pac-Man, things like that. If I went back to Japan, would I want to walk around the forest again? Absolutely. If I went back to Japan, I would take off where I left off, but I would do it with a vengeance. Because if I go back to Japan, you know, assuming if things go to plan, I'll be retired, and I won't have to work anymore, and I'll be free, and do whatever the hell I want, and I won't have Emily will be all grown. I can go out, you know, for longer times out into the mountains. Yumiko and I can go explore together. We would like to go see lots of Japan together. I'd have better equipment, technology. I'm more mature. I've learned my lessons. You know, I was kind of I was still working on a lot of kinks when I was living in Japan, and I've still got some more to work out. Yeah, I would definitely, I would become softypapa again. I would do basically the exact same thing I did before. Walking in Japan, abandoned Japan, YouTube bullet train, the whole kit and caboodle. But I would come back at it with a renewed energy and focus and vitality and maturity and what's the word that I'm trying to find? I feel tamed, right? You know, I wasn't tamed. Life was still tossing me around in here when I was during the Japan years, and that's largely done. And welcome to the website from Hamilton, Ontario. Welcome. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I posted 3 blog posts in the last week. If you're subscribed to the website, you'll get those. Great to see you and your family doing well, Kurt. If you ever move back to Japan, I would be absolutely ecstatic for some more Japan nature walks. You'll get them. You miss Softypapa, Christopher? Thank you. I kind of miss doing that sometimes too. Do you think that the lack of diversity in Japan helps them to remain unique? Absolutely. Yeah, I do. And it's a double-edged sword, right? But absolutely. Ware ware nipponjin, we Japanese. So finally, I'll answer the question for myself. Was coming to America a good choice for me? I can answer this most wholeheartedly and most honestly and vociferously. Absolutely, it was the right thing to do for myself. I was burned out on Japan when I was living there before. Not burned out to the point of you know, like worn, beaten down, but I was tired. I was tired of my job. I had a good job, but it didn't challenge me, didn't interest me very much. It was kind of same old, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I wanted a challenge, and I certainly got that in spades, jumping back into IT in my 50s, right? So it's been a rough 7 years at work over here, but boy, have I been challenged. boy, have I grown. Boy, have I learned a lot. I am, even if I go back to Japan and become, if I needed to work and became an English teacher again, I would feel very satisfied. I would feel like I could do it. I could succeed at it because I wanted that. I wanted that sense that I could be successful. And I got that coming back. We'll see if it lasts, right? Because I've got big challenges ahead of me right now. And I mean it honestly. I could indeed, I'm in vulnerable position now. And I could indeed be fired if I fail. And I would deserve it, and I would accept that, and I would move on, go back to Japan and say, well, at least I got 7 or 8 years wrapped up. I did my best. So on the other front, the walking in Japan and the abandoned Japan, I was burned out on all that stuff too. I mean, I remember those last year of going out into the mountains, and it's like, okay, there's a leech, there's a farm, there's the cicadas, Yahoo. I don't know if it came across in the videos, but I was burned out on all that stuff, all of it. I was burnt, and I'd probably, if I went back after 7 or 10 years, I'd probably be burned out again. It's just my nature. It wasn't Japan's fault. It was just that, I'd been doing that thing for too long. If I go back, I'm ready to do it again. So I saw a couple comments. Do you think you like it? Okay, speaking of softypapa, I still have the omamori. I bought it from you. I hang it on my car mirror. No kidding. Wow, from the old Tokaido store. Thank you. Looks like you did well at your career here. Yeah, I've done well. I mean, I would be much better if I had never left Japan, right? I mean, if I would probably have a house that was paid off for now, and I'd be, if I was in public sector, I could be ready a few years away from really retiring with a nice pension. But I wouldn't have Japan. I wouldn't have the experience of all that stuff that happened there. I wouldn't have the experience of my business, the omamori, all that stuff that happened, right? Which I think was the great life adventure that I personally prefer to have a great life adventure, right? A couple of them at least, right? So there's that. I saw a comment, then I'll read a little bit, then I'm going to go to bed. What was that? I got to figure out how to do this. I was bummed when you left Japan, but you do seem happier now. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Happiness isn't my measure of success. My measure of success is living a virtuous life. And sometimes I'm not happy with the challenges that I have to undertake to live that virtuous life. Like, it takes a lot to be a good parent, right? You have to sacrifice a lot. And but I know that is the top of the top tier of the things that I have to do, that I want to do in life, to live a virtuous life. There's a whole bunch of other things, and they're all enumerated in my book, Going Alone. That's why I recite these things to myself every day. And I'm going to recite one right now, which is objective number 3, which I don't even need to look up. It's the development and maintenance of good and effective life principles. But let me go ahead and read it. Remember, I read these objectives and principles to myself every morning. It's the first thing I do. Here we go. No, these are principles. Let's get to the objective. Okay, here we go. It's not very long. It's a paragraph. Right here. The development and maintenance of good and effective life principles. Develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's right. Here we go. It's a little dark. I will secure early in life. Wow, I can barely read wow. I will secure early in life good rules to live by. Obligations and principles which are, I can barely read, which are accurate and true. My right eye is going out. I've got an appointment with the optometrist next month, but it's really getting hard to see. I don't know if I can read this. I can't. It's too dark. So anyway, getting old. gonna be dead before I know it. Anyway, basically, that principle basically says is that I need to collect together objectives and principles that I can use as my guide for life. Now, some people do this by turning to the objectives and principles given to them by their community, by their religion, by their society, whatever the case may be. Japan does that in spades. For me, I put it together myself. And I do that by by collecting them. It took me about 2.5 years, 3 years to collect these ideas that formed that one core of that one chapter in the book. And then I remind myself of them every day, think about them, and tune them up, discard some, add new ones, etc. And that's an important part of my day. And I saw a long comment here. Monari says, I saw when you said you would try to force yourself to learn the language by getting a job in Japan if you go back sooner. As an idea, do you think you would add to the learning it by teaching us? You betcha. Wouldn't that be fun, Monari? Yeah, okay. I like that idea. Wouldn't that be a challenge what if I did this? What if I did live videos like this, trying to talk to people, right? You know, especially old people, they like to talk to you. Set this up, sit down in a park, talk to an old person. we could work on it together. That would be fun. Something I avoided when I was in Japan before. I don't know if you noticed it, but I kind of avoided ever talking to anybody in my videos in Japan, and that was mainly because I was so embarrassed by my bad Japanese. Essex says, I understand the reading struggle. I just turned 50 and I have my kids read small things for me. It's kind of hard, and it's kind of spooky at the same time, isn't it? So many things starting to go. That's why it's all the more important to take each of these days so much better seriously. Like this moment right now. How very pleasant. Well, I think that's enough for tonight. I think I'll title this video Emily's Little Secret. What do you think? Do you think that'll get some views? Now I'm going to go back. My wife's probably wondering what happened to me. I did tell her I'm headed out to make a video. She says, "You're doing what?" Have you heard of Jordan Peterson? Of course. He recommends Stoicism. Yeah. My own worldview is heavily influenced by Stoic principles. Yes, in fact, Stoicism is one of the hashtags in here. Yeah, I know Jordan Peterson stuff. He's very interesting. Actually, I finished last year, or this year actually, early this year. I finished Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, which I really enjoyed. The book's about that thick. And then I was watching a lecture with Jordan Peterson where he was recommending Crime and Punishment as possibly the best novel ever written. So it's sitting on my shelf. It's in my stack of books to read. But thanks to Jordan Peterson, I decided to take on yet another Dostoevsky book. Very hard. Yes. What was the yes to, little five? Monari says, glad to see you. Have a good night. Thank you. Kurt, I know you are going to bed soon. I love your streaming in this format. Thank you. Do you guys like this little setting here? Maybe I'll do this more often here. Sneak into the pool after dark. Have a good night. Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say that there's one last sliver of pie waiting. I went to Julian over the weekend. Remember I made the video on the motorcycle going out to Julian? One last sliver of apple pie. I'm going to go in there, split that down the middle, heat that up, have that with my wife, and then I'm going to call it a night. And I'm going to wish all of you... Oh, you like the idea of the video title, Small Five. Okay, good. Emily's Little Secret. Oh, that's going to get a lot of views. But it feels, is it bad of me to do that? To give a clickbaity title like that? I find it feels kind of diabolical. It's in there, right? You just have to watch the whole, this is 38 minutes long. You have to watch, I covered it about a third of the way in, I think. Yeah, I have to watch the whole thing. People are going to go, get to the point. Okay. All right, all 22 of you out there. It's been fun sitting and talking. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Remember, be safe, but not too safe. And I'll talk to you again maybe tomorrow. Good night.